This story isn't about betrayal the way we usually understand it. It's about what happens when the mind protects itself too well, and the person who loves you has to choose between lying to you or waiting until you're ready to face the truth. The champagne glass slipped out of my hand before I even realized I'd dropped it. It hit the floor with a soft clink, bounced once on the carpet, and rolled under the buffet table. Nobody noticed. Everyone was watching the dance floor. Watching her. Watching them. Myra was laughing. The loud kind of laugh she only reserves for stories she's already heard but pretends are new. Her hand was resting on his chest. Not by accident, not casually. It was planted there, like it belonged. He was the new VP from the Miami office. I didn't know his name. Still don't. All I knew was that I recognized the shape of his mouth, because it had just been on hers. 10 seconds ago, they kissed. In public. In front of the blinking fairy lights and the DJ booth and the entire sales department. At a corporate party where the company president had literally just given a speech about family values. And she didn't flinch. She didn't step back or apologize or even look remotely embarrassed. She turned her head slowly and locked eyes with me. I was standing by the dessert tray, holding half a cookie and the pieces of what I thought was a happy marriage. My face must have said everything because she smiled. Not a warm smile, not a sorry smile, a knowing one. And then she mouthed something. 4 words. I didn't hear them. The music was too loud, the room too bright, my brain too slow. But her lips were clear, deliberate, familiar. You always do this. That was the moment everything went sideways. I hadn't said a word, hadn't moved. I was the one betrayed. And somehow, she made it feel like it was my fault. She walked off the dance floor without him, grabbed a glass of red wine from a passing tray, and disappeared through the side door that led to the balcony. I stood there, surrounded by laughter and strobe lights, pretending like I wasn't unraveling from the inside. The worst part? This wasn't the first time something like this happened. But it might be the last. I didn't follow her right away. I just stood there, still gripping the half-eaten cookie like it was evidence. Maybe in a way it was, a symbol of how clueless I'd been the whole time. The glass on the floor had already been kicked under a table, out of sight. Just like me, I guess. Eventually, I forced my legs to move. I told Dave from payroll I needed air. He barely looked up from his conversation. No one was watching me. No one ever did. That's the thing I've started to realize about my life. I could fall through a crack in the floor, and people would just think the music skipped. I pushed through the side door and stepped onto the balcony. Cold air bit through my shirt. The view should have been beautiful. Twinkling city lights, the river, the outline of the suspension bridge glowing in amber. But my eyes were on her. Myra was leaning on the railing, back to me, wine glass dangling between her fingers like she'd forgotten it was there. Her hair was pinned up, but 2 strands had come loose and curled down her neck. The man from the dance floor wasn't with her, but someone else was. He was older, gray beard, charcoal coat, standing just far enough to seem like a stranger, but close enough to be part of something. They weren't talking, just waiting. I cleared my throat, stupidly, like I was announcing myself to a job interview, and stepped closer. She didn't look at me, didn't say anything. Just handed the wine glass to the older man like he was a waiter. He took it and walked back inside without a word. Then she turned. "Owen," she said, as if it was the first time she'd seen me all night. My voice cracked before I even said anything. "What was that?" I asked, quieter than I meant to. "Out there. With him." She gave a small smile, and this is the part that really messes with my head. She actually looked relieved. "I was hoping you'd see," she said. I didn't know what that meant. Still don't. I asked her again, louder this time. I needed something. Regret. An apology. A why. But she just leaned back against the railing, looking up at the sky like we were discussing the weather. "You ever wonder," she said, "what it would feel like to stop pretending?" It hit me in the gut. I wanted to scream at her, shake her, ask her how long she'd been planning this, how long she'd been building up to some twisted performance of public betrayal. But instead, I asked the stupidest thing I could have possibly said. Who was that guy? Her smile faded. Which one? I froze. Which one? She didn't let me answer. She just stood there, silhouetted by city light, and said something I'll never forget for as long as I live. I needed you to break first. You never break, Owen. You just bend. Quietly, silently, forever. But now you're cracked. And now, maybe you'll finally listen. Then she walked past me and back inside like nothing happened. I didn't move for 5 minutes, maybe 10. I stood on that balcony and listened to the muffled bass thumping from inside, and the cars honking down below, and the high ringing in my ears that wouldn't go away. She wanted me to see it. She orchestrated it. And the scariest part? That was only the opening act. Because when I got home, she was already there. And she wasn't alone. I took the long way home. Not on purpose, really. I just kept missing turns I've taken 1,000 times before. My hands were shaking the whole drive, and I kept turning the radio up and down like I couldn't decide if silence or noise was worse. When I finally pulled into the driveway, her car was already there. That was the first thing that didn't make sense. I left the party before her. I didn't stop anywhere, didn't talk to anyone on the way out. And yet, her silver Volvo was parked perfectly in its usual spot, windows fogged just slightly like it had been sitting there for a while. The second thing that hit me was the upstairs bedroom light. It was on, flickering slightly, like it always did when someone used the dimmer too fast. That light only flickers for one reason. Someone's in there. I stepped out of the car and just stared at the house. The porch light buzzed. The curtains in the living room were drawn shut. Nothing moved. I don't know what I expected when I opened the door. Maybe silence. Maybe her sitting in the kitchen with a 1,000-yard stare and some cryptic monologue about why she did it. But instead, I heard music. Jazz. Low. Slow. Old-school vinyl type of jazz with a trumpet that sounded like it was trying not to cry. Myra doesn't even like jazz. I moved quietly, past the hallway, up the stairs. The door to the bedroom was cracked open. I pushed it slowly, and there she was, sitting on the edge of the bed, barefoot, in a black satin robe I didn't know she owned. Her hair was down now, wet, like she'd just showered, like nothing had happened, like this was a Tuesday. On the other side of the bed was a suitcase. Mine. Half packed. She didn't look up when I walked in. Instead, she said, "You should get your charger. I left it in the kitchen." I stared at her, trying to find her face in this stranger's posture. "What is this?" I asked. That's when she finally looked at me. And her eyes weren't sad. They weren't even angry. They were ready. "This isn't revenge," she said softly. "It's exposure." I felt my legs weaken. Exposure to what? She stood up, walked over to the closet, and pulled something out. A brown envelope. Thick. Old. Handed it to me like it was nothing. Inside? Photos. Dozens of them. And none of them were of her. At first, I thought she made a mistake. Maybe handed me the wrong envelope. Maybe this was part of some art project or a strange therapy assignment. But then I looked closer. Every photo, every single one, was of me. Different days, different outfits, some at work, one at the gas station, one where I'm getting coffee at that awful diner by the freeway, one where I'm walking the dog in the snow, looking down at my phone, and all of them taken from a distance, through windows, from behind parked cars, angles I would have never noticed. I felt my throat tighten. "What is this?" I asked, but it came out as a whisper. Myra didn't answer right away. She sat back down on the edge of the bed, calm, like she was watching a play she'd already seen before. "Do you remember last October?" she finally asked. "When you said you were flying to Denver for that weekend conference?" I nodded slowly. That conference was awful. 3 days of lukewarm panels and half-eaten catering. What did that have to do with anything? "You never went," she said, like it was a fact she pulled from a weather report. Your badge never got scanned. Your hotel reservation was canceled an hour after you booked it. That made me blink. I had no idea what she was talking about. I did go, I said, louder than I meant to. I have the photos, my panel, the speaker lineup. You flew to Chicago for 36 hours, no hotel, just moved around the city, ate alone, rode the train for no reason. I know because someone followed you. I felt like the walls were getting smaller. You hired someone to follow me? She didn't nod, didn't shake her head either, just stared. And then she said something that made everything in me go still. I thought you were cheating, Owen. But you weren't. You were hiding something much worse. She reached into the nightstand and pulled out a second envelope. Black this time. I didn't open it. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see how far you'd go. I thought if I pushed you, if I did something public, you'd finally tell me. But you didn't. I couldn't even form words. She stood, walked to the door, and before she left the room, she looked over her shoulder and said, "You weren't supposed to be the mystery." I was. Then she left me there, with 2 envelopes, and 100 questions. I didn't open it at first. I just held the black envelope in my hands, feeling the edges, the faint pressure of something thick inside. Unlike the first one, it wasn't soft with photographs. This one was heavier, rigid, maybe a document or something else. I don't know why, but it scared me more than the pictures did. I sat on the floor of the bedroom, back against the dresser. The room still smelled faintly like her perfume and something else, sandalwood maybe, but it felt completely empty. Even though I was still surrounded by furniture, blankets, the framed photo from our wedding on the shelf above me. Everything felt vacant, like a model home someone forgot to move into. Eventually, curiosity won. I peeled open the flap, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. Inside wasn't what I expected. There was no letter, no confession, just a printed transcript, a surveillance transcript, marked with time codes, dates, and 2 names, Owen Hale and Dr. Eliza Mendel. I felt the breath leave my body. I hadn't said Dr. Mendel's name out loud in nearly a year. She was a therapist. Mine, technically. Although the sessions stopped after just 4 weeks. I told Myra I quit because work got too busy, but the truth was, the sessions made things worse. She was trying to open doors I had intentionally sealed shut. But now I was holding proof that someone, Myra, had transcripts of those sessions, private sessions, recorded somehow, without my knowledge. Some of the dialogue was familiar, word-for-word things I remembered saying. Some of it wasn't, or maybe I'd repressed it. I skimmed through, my eyes catching phrases I wish I hadn't seen. Sometimes I think she only married me because I was safe. I keep dreaming about the train tracks. I'm not even on them. I'm just watching. There are hours I don't remember. Whole drives, whole days. That last line made my skin crawl. I had no memory of ever saying that. But there it was, in black ink, labeled with my name, like it was part of a script I didn't know I was reading from. Myra knew. She knew more than I ever told her, and she hadn't used it to confront me. She'd used it to build something, a file, a case, a stage. And the worst part? I think she was right to do it. Because as I read further, a question started to form in the back of my mind. A quiet, awful whisper I didn't want to acknowledge. What if I was hiding something? From myself. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, fully dressed, the black envelope open on the nightstand beside me like it was breathing. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those transcripts again. My own words, staring back at me in sterile typeface. The phrases kept looping in my head, especially the one I didn't remember saying. There are hours I don't remember. That wasn't a metaphor. It was literal. I started going back through my calendar, my photos, messages, everything I could use to stitch my life back together. And that's when I found the gap. 3 Thursdays ago. It was supposed to be a normal workday. Nothing special. I clocked in. Emails looked routine. There was a Slack thread where I said I was heading out for lunch around 1:15 p.m. Then nothing. No outgoing texts, no sent emails, no bank charges. No GPS history on my phone between 1:30 and 4:45 p.m. 3 hours. Gone. Erased like they were never lived. I went downstairs and asked Myra if she remembered what I did that afternoon. She didn't even flinch. "You had a dentist appointment, I think," she said, not looking up from her book. I didn't. "You said you did." I stared at her. She was too calm. It was like she'd practiced that line. I asked her again, directly this time. "Myra, did something happen that day?" She turned a page and finally looked at me. "Do you want the truth?" she said. "Or do you want the version you already believe?" That shut me up. Because the truth is, I didn't believe anything anymore. I wasn't sure what version of myself I was even defending. Later that night, I opened a locked drawer in my office, one I hadn't touched in months, and found something I swear I didn't put there. A flash drive. No label. Just sitting next to an old stapler and a dead pack of batteries. I plugged it in. One folder. Titled, Thursday. Inside was a video, and when I pressed play, I saw myself, sitting across from Myra, in a room I didn't recognize, saying things I definitely don't remember saying. The moment the video began, I felt my chest tighten. The quality wasn't great. Grainy, like it had been recorded on an old phone or a hidden security camera. The frame was slightly tilted, like it had been placed in a hurry. But the image was unmistakable. It was me, sitting in a metal chair, hands folded tightly in my lap. The walls were blank and pale, almost clinical. Behind me was a large window, but it was pitch black outside. No movement, no city lights, nothing to reflect where or when this was. Myra sat across from me. No makeup, hair pulled back, wearing a dark gray hoodie I didn't recognize. She looked younger somehow, tired, but composed. Her posture was straight, eyes fixed on me like she was waiting for me to crack. I turned up the volume. My voice came through first. Soft, hesitant. "I don't think this is real." She didn't respond right away in the video, just studied me. "You said that last time too," she eventually said. "And the time before." "I don't remember saying that." "That's kind of the point." I paused the video. I was sweating. I felt sick. I couldn't remember any of this. Not the room, not the clothes, not the conversation. It was like watching someone impersonate me with terrifying precision. I let it play again. "I need to go home," the video version of me said. "You said you wanted the truth. Not like this. You said you'd stay until you stopped lying." There was something in her tone. Not angry, not cruel, just cold, professional. Like she was reading off a prepared script. Then something horrifying happened. In the video, I reached for my wrist and tapped at a blank spot like checking a watch. I don't wear a watch, haven't in years. But I kept doing it, over and over. Same motion, same confused expression. And then I said something I've never heard myself say. "They keep changing the date." That was it. The video cut out. No ending, no explanation. Just a frozen frame of me, still reaching for a watch that wasn't there. I sat there in my office, staring at the screen long after it went black. The walls around me felt like they were closing in. Myra was upstairs, maybe asleep, maybe watching. I didn't know what she was capable of anymore. But something had shifted. This wasn't just about betrayal. This wasn't just about lies. This was about control. And I was starting to realize I hadn't had it for a long time. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I was afraid of what I might say. Or worse, what I might not remember saying. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the flicker of that video again. The blank stare, the watchless wrist, the voice that sounded like mine but echoed like it belonged to someone else. The next morning, she was already in the kitchen when I came down. Coffee made, 2 mugs, hers black, mine with a splash of oat milk, just like always. She didn't look surprised to see me. In fact, she looked relieved. "I wasn't sure if you'd still be here," she said softly. I sat down, not touching the coffee. I didn't need caffeine. I needed clarity. "Myra," I said, "what happened to me?" She was quiet for a long time. Then finally she pulled out a folded sheet of paper and placed it in front of me. It was a discharge report. My name, my date of birth, a clinic I didn't recognize, 3 weeks of inpatient observation, diagnosis, dissociative fugue. She looked me in the eyes. "That Thursday you lost? You didn't just disappear from your calendar, Owen. You disappeared from your life. You left work, drove 4 hours west, checked into a motel under a different name, left your phone in the sink. You didn't call me. You didn't contact anyone." She paused. Her voice cracked just slightly. "You vanished for 2 days. They found you wandering outside a hospital. No ID, no memory. You told a nurse your name was Anthony. You thought it was 2016. I sat there frozen. Every part of me wanted to deny it. But deep down, something in my chest loosened, like I'd been holding my breath for months without realizing it. "I didn't tell you right away," she continued. "Your doctor said it might make things worse. So we eased you back into the routine, let your mind reassemble itself. You went back to work. We had dinners. We went to that jazz concert. You said you hated jazz, but you smiled the whole time." My hands were shaking. "Then why the party? The kiss? The envelopes? Why all of that?" She looked down, eyes glassy but resolute. "Because I was waiting for you to notice, to ask. You were living like nothing had happened. You weren't ready. You were still inside the version of yourself you built to protect something fragile. And I was terrified of breaking it too soon." I finally reached for the coffee. It was cold, but I didn't care. "And now?" I asked. She gave a tired smile. "Now you're asking. Now you're ready." We sat there in silence, surrounded by soft morning light and the hum of the refrigerator. No drama, no betrayal, just truth. Finally. Later that day, I called Dr. Mendel. I told her I wanted to come back, not because something was wrong, but because I finally wanted to understand. Myra didn't leave me. She didn't cheat. She didn't manipulate me. She waited. She waited while I forgot, while I rewrote memories, while I bent reality around the pieces I was too afraid to hold. And when I was ready, she brought me back. Not as the man I was before, but as the version of me who could finally see her.